The biggest barrier to changing the world isn't having great ideas, it's explaining them. Even the world's most successful people struggle with this. But there is one person who seems to have cracked the code on explaining big complex ideas: Bill Gates. That man can break down anything from quantum computing to climate change so clearly that his TED Talks get millions of views. He has learned how to translate big, meaty, complex topics into powerful messages that resonate with everybody, from world leaders to high school students. And in this video, let's see how is he doing this. I'm going to show you 3 powerful techniques that Bill Gates is using to make difficult ideas easy to understand and easy to take action on. And you can use these techniques too, whether you are pitching a business idea, you are delivering a presentation in work, or you're trying to have a conversation around the family table about something that you really care about in the world. These tips will help you to get your message across. Before we jump into those 3 tips, do me a favor, if this content is useful to you, if you like it, hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps me grow my channel. Okay, Bill Gates, let's get into it. Now let's travel back in time first, because Bill Gates wasn't always a brilliant communicator. Back in the 80s and 90s, when Microsoft was starting to become successful, Bill Gates was known for being technically brilliant, but not so good at communicating that brilliance. He tended to overwhelm his audience with lots of technical details. His presentations were packed with jargon, and he just wasn't brilliant at explaining these brilliant big ideas very well. Here's an old clip we can look at, and we can see that Bill Gates' communication style is quite hesitant. He's kind of stumbling over his words, and he's speaking a lot of jargon. It's not so easy to understand. Let's have a look.
There'd been the Altair and a few other companies, actually about 24, that had done various machines, but the 77 group included the PET, TRS-80,
Commodore.
and the Commodore PET, TRS-80, and the Apple II. The original Apple II Basic, the Integer Basic, we had nothing to do with, but then there was a floating point one where, and I mostly worked with Woz on that.
Let me tell this story.
And you can see Steve Jobs watching Bill Gates kind of smirking, and then eventually he interrupts and he says he'll tell the story. Now this is kind of reassuring for all of us, isn't it? Because we can see that Bill Gates wasn't always a brilliant communicator. It's something that he's had to work on and improve and practice as a skill. And any of us can do that. Let's have a look at another early interview from Bill Gates. And again, we can see that he wasn't always brilliant at talking about the big picture or telling a compelling story. Rather, he could be drawn into focusing on activities or tasks or just things that were happening, rather than about the impact or the results or what this all means. Here he is. This is back from 1984 on a show called Today.
The work we're doing is, it's not like, we're doing the same thing all day long. We go into our offices and think up new programs, we get together in meetings, we go out and see end users, we talk to customers. There's so much variety, and there's always new things going on. And I don't think there'll ever come a time when that would be boring.
And let's look at one more clip. Here's an old one where he was with David Letterman, and David Letterman asks him to explain the internet. And you'll notice in his answer that he focuses on the features of the internet, things like publishing information, creating homepages, sending email, rather than the bigger picture of global connection or how the internet is about to change the entire world.
It's become a place where people are publishing information.
Right.
So everybody can have their own homepage, companies are there, the latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Bill Gates was not always naturally brilliant at communicating big ideas. But something interesting happened when Bill Gates started transitioning to philanthropy work. When the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was set up, this is when we see his communication style begin to change and begin to seriously improve. Because in this role, he now needed to, it was absolutely imperative that he could explain big, meaty, complex ideas to potential donors where they could not only understand the idea, but they would take action on that idea. And these were quite complicated, muddy topics: global poverty, climate change, global healthcare. He couldn't rely on expertise alone. He had to be able to explain these in simple ways that people could understand immediately. Here are the 3 strategies that Bill Gates used to improve his communication to become one of the world's most effective communicators on complex ideas. Number 1, start with why it matters. The first breakthrough in Bill Gates' communication style seems to be when he realized that technical expertise wasn't enough. He needed to make people care. He needed to make an emotional connection, didn't he? And how he does this is before he starts talking about the topic in terms of technical solutions or ideas, he talks about why it matters. He focuses on making a personal or emotional connection. Let me give you an example of when he did this so brilliantly. In 2009, Bill Gates delivered a TED Talk on the topic of malaria. He told the audience that malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. And then he walked to the middle of the stage where there was a glass jar, and that jar was full of mosquitoes. And he lifted up the glass jar and he let the mosquitoes roam around the auditorium amongst the audience. Now, he did make it clear that the mosquitoes did not have malaria, but man alive, did that stunt grab the attention of the audience, and it made them care because it made them think about, oh wow, like those mosquitoes flying around. That's how easy it is to get malaria. Let's have a look at the footage from this. I want you to watch the audience's faces when he lifts up that jar. You can see the light bulb moment when they really emotionally connect with the topic.
Over 200 million people at any one time are suffering from it. Means that you can't get the economies in these areas going because it holds things back so much. Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit.
Did you see that dark-haired lady near the front? She nearly lost her mind when she realised that mosquitoes were coming out flying all around. You better believe she was hanging on to every word he said after that. Because he made her care about the issue, didn't he? He made the whole audience care. He connected with their hearts before their minds. And this communications approach aligns with what we know about neuroscience and how our brains work. Research suggests that emotional engagement will activate different parts of your brain, and this will improve both your attention and your memory. When people really care about something, they're more likely to put the effort in to understand it, and they're more likely to remember it. Let's look at an example of how you could apply this same technique in your workplace without bringing a load of mosquitoes into the office. Probably get in trouble for that. Let's say you're in work and you have a brilliant idea of how to change something or improve something, but you need buy-in from leadership before you can go ahead and do it. And you've got 20 minutes in front of them to sell your idea and get them excited. Now, previously what you might have done is gone in with really complex slide decks and talked them through every bit of the project and exactly what you want to do and how. But now that we know how Bill Gates approaches this, you can take a different stance. You want to go in bigger, you want to go in bolder, you want to help them care. So you want to think before that meeting, what did the people in that room care about? What am I going to say that's going to really impact them and make them pay attention? So maybe you're going to frame your idea through the lens of the top priorities of those business leaders, rather than get stuck in all the details of how it's all going to work and when. This will help them to sit up and pay attention to you and care because you're framing it through their priorities and not yours. Establishing why something matters will make the rest of your communication so much easier. Now let's move on to the second technique that we see Bill Gates use. So the first one is he makes people care. He talks about why this matters. The second thing then he does is he uses analogies to make complex ideas easy to understand. An analogy is when you explain something really unfamiliar by comparing it to something really familiar. And it's a powerful technique. You will see professional speakers, keynote speakers, they use this all the time. It takes something quite abstract and it makes it very tangible in the minds of the audience. So you're going to take some big complex idea that your audience doesn't understand and you're going to frame it through something that is familiar to them that they already know about. Let's look at an example. Bill Gates once talked about climate change and he used the analogy of a bathtub. And he talked about the climate is like a bathtub that's like filling up with water. And even if we turn the tap down and it's only a little trickle coming out, the tub will still eventually overflow and all go spilling out onto your bathroom floor. And that's the disaster that we have to prevent. And he used this analogy to help the audience understand that we don't just need to reduce our emissions, we need to eliminate them, or all that water is going to spill over onto your floor. So he took that idea of a bathtub, which everybody in the audience knows what that is, and they could picture it filling up and filling up and filling up. And he made it much easier to understand the imperative of taking action on climate change. And that's what makes an analogy like this so effective. You're tapping into knowledge that the audience already has, and they get this aha moment and everything suddenly becomes super clear. And you can use this technique too. Let's look at how you could use this in work. Maybe you are trying to explain a complex technical project, and maybe you can compare the software architecture to like the public transport infrastructure in a city. And you could say our system is like a central train station. It's connecting all the different services. It's managing everything centrally in one place. When you are creating analogies to explain your complex ideas, just remember these couple of tips. Number one, think about your audience and find ideas that will be familiar to them. So this is always dependent on who you're speaking to. The second one is to keep it really simple. If you have to explain it, then it's probably too complex. And also, it's probably a good idea to have a backup analogy, just in case you see any confusion on your audience's faces. Just have another way to explain it. Okay, so we're really learning a lot from Bill Gates here. We know that he starts with making that connection about why people should care. Then he's going to use analogies to explain things, to make it more familiar to the audience, to give them that aha moment, I get it. And then the third technique that he's using is he's breaking down these big, overwhelming problems into actionable steps. Some of the challenges he talks about, global poverty and climate change, they seem completely insurmountable, don't they? They just seem impossible. And that can be quite overwhelming when you're trying to communicate that to an audience. And Bill Gates knows this, so he breaks it down into actionable chunks, actionable things that we can do to solve this problem. He doesn't say things like, let's stop climate change, full stop, but he'll get more specific, won't he? He'll say we need clean power, and then he'll take that and he'll break it down into specific things that we can do to get clean power. Maybe, for example, he wants to invest in next generation power stations, or improve energy storage technology, or upgrade power grids. I mean, I'm not a power expert, I don't know, but he'll take these very specific steps, and so that the audience can really think, oh yeah, I understand the things that we can do to solve this big complex problem. It makes it much more tangible, much more concrete. It makes it easier for your audience to take action. It really gets them from a place of this is impossible to, oh, this is exactly what we need to do. And of course, we can all use this communications technique. It's so powerful. Let's say you work in an organization and you want to improve the employee experience in your company. But that seems really big and complex, doesn't it? And a bit overwhelming. But you could break it down into more specific actions that would make the employee experience better. Things like you could analyze the exit interviews to see what are the recurring complaints from employees that leave. Maybe you could survey new employees about how they found the onboarding experience. You could get a group of employees together to test out the intranet navigation to see if it's helping them to find the information they need. And all of these kind of very specific actions, they'll all result in improvements to employee experience. So the next time you need to communicate some big complex idea, remember that Bill Gates did not start as a naturally brilliant communicator of ideas like this. He went on a journey. This kind of communication, it's not about natural talent or innate skill. It's about deliberate practice and repetition and trying again and getting better over time. And I think seeing the early clips of Bill Gates versus how he's operating as a communicator now, quite reassuring. I feel like we can all go on that journey. We can all become better communicators. Let's recap the 3 strategies that Bill Gates is using. The first is make your audience care. The second is to use clear analogies that they will understand. And the third is to break down big ideas into actionable steps. When you want to try and apply these yourself in work, for example, here are a couple of things to think about. The first one is, who's your audience? Who do you want to explain this to? Then you want to think about, with that particular audience in mind, why should they care about this? How can I connect with them? Then you want to think about something that is familiar to them so that you can create an analogy to give them that light bulb moment. And then how can you break this down into some concrete steps so that they will understand immediately what needs to happen? Because remember, your great ideas will only be great if you can communicate them, if other people can understand them and take action on them. So you have a complex idea that you're really struggling to get buy-in or support for in work. Tell me in the comments below. Let's see if we can help each other. I will give you some ideas based on your scenario. I'll help you as much as I can. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time.